Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Politics Relaxed. I mean, we're starting this year with a bit of a bang, with a massive week again in politics. It seems like it's been a different year, but the same Boris. We've had more Partygate stories. I think we're up to 3 parties reported just in this week. So it started with a leaked email from ITV, which showed Boris Johnson's parliamentary private secretary emailing over 100 Downing Street employees and asking them if they wanted to come to a bring your own booze party in the outside of Downing Street. And then there was and then just today we've heard that there was another party the day before or the evening before Prince Philip's funeral. And then in the last few hours we've had another party confirmed by the Telegraph twice, 2 Telegraph stories. So I think you can read into that however you want. Let's kind of get straight into it. I don't know. I mean, first of all, actually, let's go around and ask. I mean, I think at this point everybody is against Boris Johnson being the Prime Minister, if I'm not mistaken. Anybody want to?
Yeah, I'd say that I'd disagree personally. Although I would say that Boris Johnson should publicly receive some sort of punishment for what he's done.
Yeah, resigning. He holds the highest office in the country. Resigning is the punishment.
I think that's a bit too far. I'd say resigning is an option, but that is not one for the public.
I mean,
that's something for Parliament. That's something for Parliament to decide whether they call a vote of no confidence, or
I think it's something for the PM moral compass to decide rather than Parliament. It's not like we're in a pick and mix political scandal game where you can pick if you want to resign. I think that he should resign because he's caused a lot of damage with this, and there are people who couldn't see their loved ones when they were dying. And over the last few days and weeks, we've heard people on the radio, on TV, talking about their experiences of COVID and just how bad it was. And now for the Prime Minister to have even more parties. I mean, does anybody even know how many parties there's been? Because I couldn't tell you. It's over.
It's got to be on 6 or 7 by now.
I think it's more like 16 or 17, to be honest. It's a huge. If you count the ones from what do you call him, the mayoral candidate, I forgot his name, Sean Bailey, and the ones from the education minister and all of his kind of colleagues, and then there was the one from Rishi Sunak's colleagues also had one. It's too many to count.
No, I do agree that hosting these parties is absolutely unacceptable, especially when you consider the absolute hurt that everyone has gone through. But I'm just talking from an actual factual and statistical standpoint. A statistical standpoint. No. From a statistical standpoint, if we look at the landscape throughout Europe, Britain has currently one of the most open economies in Europe. Out of all the countries in the world, we actually rank 5th in the world for the number of booster vaccines per 100 of the population. And I think that's an absolute testament to everyone in the country.
Great. It doesn't really matter. It doesn't really matter how well we're dealing with COVID right now. And I will say we are dealing with it quite well. But the point is that these parties have been revealed from a point where not only was it just the height of a pandemic in general, but it was also a point where depending on which one you're talking about, I suppose, where the pandemic wasn't being handled very well.
I mean, to say that the whole pandemic being handled well, I think is unfair, because if we look at the first year and a half, maybe even 2 years, it was a complete and utter failure. And this is when those parties were going on, and Piers is right to say that. And I mean, you're talking about facts and statistics. Do you know what the Nolan principles are? I'd hope you do.
Yes, the seven parliamentary principles.
Brought in under John Major. Yeah. I just ask if you could give an example of Boris Johnson actually kind of sticking to even one of them, because I couldn't. This is a problem with the UK's setup. Once you have a charlatan and a liar like Boris Johnson in charge, then these rules rely on people saying, I'm going to stick up for myself and I'm going to stick up for the rules. And Boris Johnson does not do that. And he had the Sue Gray inquiry. He what do you call him? He employs Sue Gray, and then for the ministerial code, he has to recommend himself to Lord Geit for breaking ministerial code. How does that even make sense? He should resign.
I think the Queen should fire him.
Yes.
Yeah, that would be unconstitutional, or rather, as we should say in this country, unconventional.
It would
But
be.
look, from my point, well, perhaps you could say that, and I'm sure the Queen would be pretty hacked off about the parties being during her time of deep mourning, and I totally feel her pain on that one. I think it's slightly disrespectful that they didn't think that through, even if people are leaving and you want to hold leaving dues from them, totally ignoring the fact that it's you're in the middle of a global pandemic that's killing thousands of people. I think that they should have thought that through far better than they did. In fact, the whole situation, I'll just expand to cover the whole argument I'm trying to make, I think is demonstrative of a lack of leadership at the top level that I think we should be very concerned about. But ultimately, the issue is, I think the entire team at number 10 there's a real deficiency, I think, of experience and talent. And so when you've got Boris Johnson, what you need with Boris Johnson is a team of really strong personnel around him. You saw that is what he managed to do when he was editor of The Spectator. You saw it's what he managed to do when he was London Mayor. He got really strong teams around him, and generally he has looked back on and that he massively boosted The Spectator's numbers, and generally people still believe that Boris Johnson was a successful Mayor of London on the whole. He hasn't managed to establish this as Prime Minister, and I think a key reason for that is clearly the fact that he brought in the Vote Leave team, Dominic Cummings, Lee Kane, these people. And now when they've left, they've left a massive vacuum. They didn't do that great a job either, by the way. Dominic Cummings shouldn't be getting on any high horse because he messed a lot up. But getting back to the point, when you've got a leader like Boris Johnson, you have this team around him, that is not, I think, functional. So what we're seeing now as a result of this is just really poor decision making. If you had Theresa May in charge, there is no chance that any of these parties, I think, would be taking place at number 10, because Theresa May had a very clear moral compass, whatever you say about her, and she understood what was sensible. And this is just so, it's just so stupid. I hate to say it like this, but I've been watching people interviewed on the news about this, and I must just simply be an exponent of someone else's view who said, if he did it, he's an idiot. And I mean, that's simply the case. It's undeniable that this is an action, I think, during a global pandemic that looks, the optics on it are so awful if it gets discovered. And if you've got such a large group, then that's going to happen.
I think it's no surprise. I mean, Boris Johnson was a member of the Bullingdon Club all those years ago.
I was going to mention that.
At university, where they went and smashed up like bars and whatever. And he's not a moral man, is he? He's not a truthful man. I mean, he was sacked from his jobs at newspapers for making up quotes. This was not. It's like if somebody came up to you and just punched you in the face. It's like they were going to punch you because you saw them winding up for the punch. It's obvious. It's always been obvious. He's a liar. He's a charlatan, and he's got no moral compass. And it's as simple as that. And I think to that effect, it's not the team. It's also him. And he's created a culture in number 10, which is like caused all these scandals to happen and all these parties to happen.
Okay. Well, I personally think it's a big spit in the face to the public, these parties, especially considering they were doing majorly the first lockdown. I'm not sure if there were any more after that. I know there was that one right before the funeral, which is really disrespectful in my opinion, but I think the main disrespect to the general public comes at the time when everyone was told to stay at home, stay apart, not go to the hospitals, and just in general a hard time for everyone. And And the fact that he attended for 25 minutes and he thought it was a work event, it just doesn't really ring right. I don't think with anyone here. I think we can all agree with that. Then there was the one 5 days prior, the cheese board, and he said those people were at work talking about work. It just doesn't seem right to me. And when you just add up all those previous errors and lies, I guess you could say, like, I guess how people are thinking about back to the flat renovation and all that mystery, where did the money come from? The lies add up, and I think it's the stack is going to begin to fall soon.
I don't understand why they wouldn't just host these parties over Zoom, because that's something that they could easily do, and they did do
They
that.
had a quiz over Zoom.
Yeah, they had the Christmas quiz one over Zoom, didn't they? And
it's not that. That's
I mean,
the
if
point,
they
though.
want to take advantage of the nice May weather or something, I don't know, but like it's just ridiculous that they would purposefully plan this and expect it not to come out.
I mean, this is the crux of it, though. Boris Johnson does not think the rules apply to him. It's as simple as that. He thinks that he can get away with it, and he thinks the rules don't apply to him. And that's, I think, the reason why he didn't organise this on Zoom.
It's a key point, actually. Boris Johnson's character throughout his entire life has shown repetitive trends. And one of those, as you're mentioning there, is that he believes that he can get away with anything. And that's because he's had the knack throughout his entire life of getting away with everything. You know, when he was sacked from the Times, he managed to somehow then go on to get a job at the Telegraph. You know, he was handed it by a contact, and then eventually he landed somehow the editorship of the Spectator, despite not making any severe waves at the Telegraph. You know, this is something that has happened through his entire life, and we're not going to see the end of that anytime soon. And the other thing, of course, as you mentioned, is lying, and sadly for him, that has been a consistent problem. And I think the two things there are completely correlated. So this is an issue, I think, of a character who increasingly it's appearing the traits are not suited to the period of time that we've gone through now.
I think that's an important point, and I wanted to get onto it, kind of the wider implications for this, because I think it does two things. I think it erodes trust in politics, which has already been eroded after Owen Paterson and everything like that. And I mean, it might be interesting to kind of explore that. And then the other thing is something changing fundamentally, in politics? And because are people kind of saying, we do not want this as our leader. We've had him for 2 years, but we've had the Brexit and all the debate, or Brexit and all the debates around that for a lot longer now. And is something changing? We're saying we don't want a populist anymore. We don't want a liar and a charlatan anymore. And we want somebody who's better. Because if you ask people 2 years ago, they would say Boris is great. He's funny. He's going to get Brexit done, and he's going to implicate all this great stuff, and we're going to have a great time. But I think something's changed, and that's come with these parties and kind of with the wider Boris Johnson.
No, but that's exactly it. It's saying that we want Boris Johnson as our prime minister to get Brexit done. In that time, it was it was a very, very good match. But if you want someone to take you out of a crisis and be great in crisis management, Boris Johnson is simply the last pick on the list. When times are average, you want someone like Boris Johnson who can sort of lift you up.
I don't think you want Boris
looking
Johnson
at policy. No. The public, in 2019, the public clearly wanted Boris Johnson. They would not get.
I don't think they wanted.
The Conservatives.
I think there was certainly a population who was people like. There were certainly people who were like, Boris is great, we love him. But that was very much the Brexit effect, I think. But I don't want to write him off. But I don't see a time when Boris Johnson would be a good prime minister. Like I just don't see it. He's ineffective and he's a liar.
But I think
I don't agree with that.
We haven't got the chance to see Boris Johnson in a time where there hasn't actually been, there hasn't been some sort of compromise to Boris Johnson. The general election was in December of 2019. The first inklings of COVID came out in December of 2019. So this man has not had a premiership after his own general election when he won the seats back to actually perform. So we are assessing a prime minister who is completely just not fit for the task whatsoever, and obviously that
he's not fit for the
obviously
task of prime minister.
I know I think he's not fit for the task of a COVID prime minister recovery man.
But
That's a bit different.
Could I come?
6 months 6 months without the ability to influence anything with I think he didn't have the majority or
6 months in power, and I think it was still a majority at the time, or near enough one.
It was the 2017 result, so that was
yeah.
That was the whole
majority.
That was the DUP, and that was at the end of the DUP. At the end of Theresa May, DUP weren't very happy, so I don't think it was a majority. Yeah.
No. So if I could just say, I mean, look, Rajan, I do understand what you're saying. From my personal point of view, as a member of the public, I don't feel moral outrage about these incidents particularly. But looking at it cynically from a solely political point of view, as a Conservative, as we both are, also, by the way, taking into account and fully empathizing with those people who have been emotionally impacted by these stories. But from a political point of view, this Prime Minister is dead in a ditch, as he once said he would be. And the reason is because he has lost entirely the trust and faith in the public. And the Conservative Party does have a ruthless streak. It's shown it so many times. You know, it showed it with even Margaret Thatcher, with Ian Duncan Smith. You know, and this party will get rid of him if they feel that they are no longer electable under him. And I fear that that's quickly the direction that we're heading in. Because right now, if you look at the polls, obviously we're 10 points behind Labour, which is the worst we've been since 2013. I mean, come on, we had Theresa May and Brexit, that whole palaver in that time, and we're in the worst moment now. And the reason for that is the leader.
Oh yeah, 100%.
And the party are not going to. And I understand what you're saying. You might be suggesting that perhaps we should give him a chance in a better period of time, or perhaps we haven't seen what he's fully capable of. But politics is what happens now, and right now, this guy is stuffed.
Yeah, really I do agree.
How can you have a prime minister who's so morally reprehensible? Is probably the right word to use. I don't see how even in good times you can have somebody who is so morally reprehensible, somebody who lies so much, who bends the truth, and somebody who's like we've seen his true colors before. We're seeing them again now. Even in good times, I don't really see how somebody so, as I say, morally reprehensible could lead the country into something positive.
Well, I'm not really sure about his previous track record or how everyone else saw him, but from what I gathered, he was quite popular as a London mayor.
Thank you everybody for watching. Let us know in the comments what you think about Partygate and the current scandals that Boris Johnson is facing, and please like the video and subscribe.